Welcome to a series of lessons on the importance of the parent-teen relationship. Just want you to know that this series is geared for both parents and teenagers, and preferably for them to watch this series together. It's only as we sit at the same table and talk about the same things and have discussions about these important factors that we're really going to have a better relationship. So I have 6 lessons that we will be talking about. And the first one is on the topic of authenticity. I love that word. I think it may be a little bit overused, but it's an important word nonetheless. So when I say authenticity, obviously you just think about being real. And that's what, at the end of the day, we all want in our relationships. We just want people to be real. Parents want their kids to be honest and be real and be consistent. And I think teens, that's what you want from mom and dad. You want them to be real. In fact, I've said this to people everywhere, and that is that kids that tend to go on for God, once they graduate from high school and begin their own lives, make their own choices, as a general rule, kids that go on for God are kids that come from homes where moms and dads were the same people at home as they were at church or in public. So that's a really important thing for us to remember, that it's relatively easy for us to play the game for small portions of time out in public and then kind of revert to our real selves in private. So let's strive to be people of authenticity. Whether I'm 15 years old or 50 years old, let's talk about authenticity. So here's the way these lessons will work. I'm going to give you 5 essential statements about the topic. So today our topic is authenticity, and I'll give you 5 essential statements about authenticity, and then I'll give you some discussion questions. So every single point we'll make will be a point that we will discuss. Because really the key to these lessons being valuable is not just hearing them. I won't say anything today that you probably don't already know, but it's as we talk about them and as we make application of each one of these to our own respective contexts. Your family, the way you deal with your mom, your dad, your teenager, your particular situation. In some cases, you're in a blended family and you're dealing with a stepmother or a stepfather, or maybe just a single mother or a single father. And all of these principles apply to every one of those situations. So I hope that you have your pen out or a way to take notes. I hope that you'll put your thinking cap on. I hope most of all, you'll just have an open heart, and let's see what God has to say to us about authenticity. I would say, first of all, and let me take one back step here. Each one of these lessons will have a passage that we ought to consider for maybe further discussion. So the passage that we're considering, and many of these points that I'm talking about today come from this very passage, is Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through the end of the chapter. Romans 12, verses 9 through 21. And I would encourage you to read that chapter or that portion of the chapter through the lens of your relationship with your teenager, or teenagers through the lens of your relationship with your mom and dad. I think that's important. Okay, let's jump right in. Authenticity. Statement number 1. Real love doesn't wear a mask. Real love doesn't wear a mask. I used to be the drama teacher at our school in Pennsylvania, and every year we would have a big school play, a big school musical, and every year I would write it. And I really enjoyed it. I don't know how I had the time, but we just did. And it was great, and the kids loved it. It was the thing to do in the spring. We played football in the fall, we played basketball in the winter, but the spring, it was time for the school play. And it seemed as if everybody jumped in. And it was always such a reveal the night of the school play, because here are these kids that are playing these parts and the parents are just wowed. Wow, I never thought my child could do that or could act like that or could sell that role. And it was hilarious when we would do a comedy. It was tear-jerking when we would do more of a drama. But it was amazing, really, to see that people have an amazing capacity to act like something that they really aren't. People are good actors. But when that is something we do in our everyday life, when that is something we do as moms and dads or as teenagers, that is toxic to the relationship of a family. I made 4 statements about masks, just that came to my mind. Masks are for performances. You don't wear a mask in real life, not a costume mask. No, that's for a performance. And I'm afraid that sometimes that's what happens in our churches. We are a different person in public than we are in private. I think secondly, masks are for pretending. When we put on a mask, we know that's not who I am. The mask is not who you are. No, who you are is the person without the mask. So you might say, well, I'm 2 people. No, you're really just one person. You're the real person, and then you're the real person that wears a mask like you're somebody else. There really is no such thing as being 2 different people. No, you're just that one person that you fake to be another person at other times. I think number 3, masks are not permanent. When the show is over, the mask is off. Masks are not permanent. As much as we want to try to turn over our new leaf in our own flesh, as much as we want to try to be a different person, there's not a permanence to anything we do from the outside in. Anything we put on from the outside is forever doomed to be temporary. The only real and permanent change that can be affected in our life is when it happens from the inside out. And that's the work of God. So authenticity really is an indication of the fact that I have a true walk with God. And maybe one of the reasons why people act so much is because it's easier in the moment to act like something I'm not than to be the person I'm supposed to be. And then lastly, masks don't ultimately fool people. Understand this, masks do not ultimately fool people. Oh, you might fool people for a performance. You might fool a stranger, but the people that are closest to you in your life, they know when you're wearing the mask and they know when you're not. And so as much as we're trying to impress people that we don't know, we ought to be more concerned about having the right relationship with the people that know us the best. That's why we're talking about this, authenticity. So a couple discussion questions. Number 1, parents, in what ways do you feel pressured to look good at church, but you struggle to live it at home? Name one. Name one. Be humble. Name one. Teens, in what ways do you mask the real you to your parents? You know what they want to hear, but boy, when you get to the bedroom, when you get on your device, when you're among your friends, who is the real you? Be careful. Second discussion question, how does pretending at church or at home hurt relationships? Have you been caught as a pretender? How has that damaged your relationship? Talk about it. Okay, and then consider one last thought, and that's this. Admitting is better than accusing. Admitting is better than accusing. And what I mean by that is, don't use this lesson as a way to say, see that, teen, see what pastor just said? You ought to be, or teenager, see that mom, see that dad? That's what you ought. No, don't accuse. Don't use this lesson to accuse the other person, but use these lessons to be humble enough to admit, well, that's me. Because all of us at times are inauthentic. Okay? Number 2, not only does real love not wear a mask, but number 2, consistency builds credibility. Consistency builds credibility. So authenticity, being real, but it's being real over time. letting people see a consistent change of behavior in your life that is affected by a real change of thinking. Consistency. So the word consistency comes from the Latin word consistere, which means to stand and hold together. There's another word that we get from that root, and that's the word consist. The Bible says in Colossians chapter 1 that by Christ all things consist. It's what keeps everything, all matter, the neutrons and protons and electrons and everything in this universe is held together by Christ. And listen, the only thing that can hold you together and the only thing that can hold your family together is Christ. And so consistency is not a matter of necessarily trying harder, although I think we should try as hard as we can, but it's a matter of having the right relationship with Christ. And we have to ask ourselves, is that true? Maybe the reason I'm inconsistent is because I'm trying to be a better me instead of trying to be controlled by the Holy Spirit and be more like Jesus. Okay, so a couple things I want you to consider. First of all, consistent actions. Now, again, if we're not careful, we can become actors and just consistently act a certain way in certain situations. That's not what I'm talking about. So really, I think the better way to look at consistency is consistent attitudes. Are your attitudes consistent? Or are you all over the map when it comes to your attitude? Boy, you're the life of the party at school, but at home you're sullen and non-talkative and you have a little bit of an attitude. Boy, your attitude tells me everything about you. Your attitude is your advertisement. And boy, do you have a consistent attitude? Because attitude really is an indication of the fruit of the Spirit. That's why it says the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy, peace, long-suffering. These are attitudes that we have. And maybe the reason why we struggle with an attitude, or maybe one of the reasons, Dad, why everyone's on pins and needles when you come home from work, did he have a good day or a bad day? Or, boy, Mom today, maybe one of the reasons we struggle with consistency and attitude is because we struggle with our consistency with the Lord. And so here are a couple discussion questions. How have you seen someone's credibility grow because their life matched their words? Talking about credibility, consistency. How have you seen somebody's credibility grow because their life matched their words? Wow, that's real. Maybe you've known somebody in the public arena, but then you saw them do something in private. So, oh, that person's real. They don't just talk about it, they embody that. Here's another question to ask ourselves. What is one small way you could be more consistent this week at home? What's one small way? What's one attitude that you could ask the Lord to help you to work on? What's one action in your life in which you've been inconsistent? You could ask the Lord this week, I'm going to be more consistent. Every single night after dinner, I'm going to make it my habit. Listen, let me clear the table. Mom, let me help you load the dishwasher. It's not my chore. I've not been asked to do it, but you just ask yourself some really important things. What are some ways to express better consistency? So we said, number one, real love doesn't wear a mask. Number two, consistency builds credibility. Okay, here's a third one to think about. You might not be able to think about all of these in one sitting, but think about this one. Ready? Hypocrisy erodes influence. Hypocrisy erodes influence. So that's kind of saying the same thing, but on the other side of the coin. So what is hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is when I act like something I'm not. So we talked about that. Real love doesn't wear masks. Okay, but hypocrisy erodes influence. So what happens when I do wear masks? What happens when I do continue to live a double life? What happens when I do continue to play that game? Well, what ends up happening is you impress people that don't know you, and you depress people that do know you. But that's an important distinction. For you win the game with the people that don't really know you, and you lose the game with the people that do really know you. Why? Because hypocrisy erodes influence. Think about that passage in 2 Timothy chapter 1, where Paul has to deal with rebuking Timothy. Timothy has grown a little bit timid about the faith. But before Paul ever gets around to rebuking Timothy, he actually praises him. And he praises him for this. Timothy, you have an unfeigned faith, not faked. The word actually literally means without hypocrisy. So Timothy, one thing I love about you is that you're real, you're authentic, you're not hypocritical. And here's what Paul said, and that's exactly what I saw in your mom, and that's exactly what I saw in your grandma. So what I would say is, as a family tonight, as you discuss this, just strive to be a family that's real, that you can talk about your hurts and talk about your inconsistencies. And remember, we're admitting, we're not accusing, because hypocrisy erodes influence. A couple questions or discussion questions to consider. Parents, how does inconsistency in your life affect your teen's view of God? Wow. How does inconsistency in your life affect your teenager's view of God? Because you are a model of God to your children in that sense. Number two, teens, how does your inconsistency affect your parents' trust? Well, you never trust me. You don't let me do anything. You don't let me have anything. Well, could it be that there's a pattern of inconsistency? And yeah, you say you're sorry, and yeah, I'll get it right, and it lasts 2 days. I'll start doing my homework on time, it lasts 3 days. So it's consistency that will breed trust, credibility, and hypocrisy that will erode influence. I remember when I was just a teenager, I know, years ago, eons ago, I was with a friend of mine. His dad was a deacon at our church. We were pulling out into the main road. We were sitting in his pickup truck. The dad was driving. My friend was in the middle. I was in the passenger seat. And somebody cut him off. And he just went into this long, yelling, swearing, angry. And I'm going to tell you something. It was awkward. Why? Because he realized in that moment that his true self came out. And that hypocrisy caused him to lose any influence that he had with me. I didn't look at him anymore as somebody that I wanted to listen to. But be so very careful. Okay, number four. Honesty initiates healing. That is so important. Honesty initiates healing. But if you want healing to begin, if the relationship right now, just admit it, between mom and dad, or mom and dad and teenager is not what it needs to be. The communication is not there. There's not that openness and safety in the communication. If that's not there, and it might not be, there might be friction in your relationship. Now, if that's true, then I'm going to tell you this, honesty is the first step, because honesty initiates healing. You've just got to be honest about what you see. And parents, you as the authorities need to invite that from your teenagers. Hey, be honest with me. Teens, anything, I'm not going to get mad at you. In what ways do you see inconsistency in me? What are some things I'm doing that erode your trust? Give me some examples. Those are humble but hard things to say, aren't they? And vice versa. So honesty initiates healing. Authenticity is not perfection. And I'm going to tell you something, teens, your parents aren't perfect and neither are you. And so initiate with what you can initiate with. Couple discussion questions. Why is it so hard to admit failure to each other in our families? Because it is hard. Even when everyone knows what our failure is, it's still hard to admit it. And I think one of the reasons for that is because sometimes when we admit our failure, the other family member uses it as leverage against us. Oh yeah, even you admit that you're this way. Even you admit. So don't do that. Don't be a scorekeeper. Don't engage in one-upmanship. If somebody is humble enough to admit a fault, then celebrate that. Don't jump on and pile on. Second discussion question, or not discussion question, but just a piece of advice. Share a time when an apology or painful, honest talk brought healing to a relationship. Think about that. Was there a time in your life, maybe not even with a family member, where there was a painful conversation, where you had to talk about things that were prickly and hard to talk about, but it brought healing because it put things on the table? Talk about it. Okay? Finally, tonight, understand this. Christ is our model for authentic living. You say, well, does anybody live up to authenticity? No, I think to a degree we're all fake at times. We all struggle with hypocrisy. We all need to push that reset button of forgiveness. All of us do. But we also have the greatest example, who is Jesus. So a good question to ask yourself tonight, or whenever you're watching this, is in what ways can I model the behavior of Christ? The one that has promised to empower me if I ask him. So think about this. You know what impressed the followers of Jesus most? Parents, this is an important principle, because what impresses your followers, your children, your teenagers most is the same thing. So what are the things that impressed the followers of Jesus most? Let me give you three. First of all, his willingness to serve. He modeled it. I mean, can you imagine being there when Jesus washed their feet? That was private. And I'm going to say this. When we serve each other privately, but without the crowd watching, without the school watching, without the church watching, without the Little League watching, without the whatever, boy, I tell you, that is impressive. Serving privately. How about this? Praying privately. The disciples knew that their leader prayed. They saw it. He's real. He's not just the preacher to 5,000. He's not just the miracle worker. Boy, he's somebody that humbly gets along with his Father, and that impressed them. Teach us to do that. Boy, he served. He prayed. He also helped. He blessed. I think about the fact that Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. I find that such a refreshing statement in the Bible, because while Jesus is healing all of these people way out there, Jesus went home that night to Peter's house, and the Bible specifically says, and there he blessed Peter's family by healing his wife's mother. And I find the way that you exemplify your Christianity best, teens, is not by being a star on the worship team in the teen group. It's not by being the most popular kid or making a big decision at camp. It's by being a loving, serving, helping teenager at home. And mom and dad, it's not the position you hold at church, or how much you gave in the offering, or how much you volunteered for a particular event. Now listen, we need all those things, trust me. But no, the greatest example is when you can love and serve and exemplify at home. To just be real, to just be authentic. So that's it for today. Take some time right now, discuss it, and we'll see you next time. God bless.